I mean, I guess it was better than F9. Before we get into the negative, and it's a lot of negative I have for this movie, I just want to talk about some of the positives. So, one big positive is that a lot of this movie is based in Rio. We get a flashback in Rio, and a lot of the middle of this film is in Rio, which I happen to enjoy because Fast Five is considered probably the best movie in the Fast and Furious franchise, and that was all in Rio. So to go back in Rio and have the origins of, Jason Momoa's villain from that film, I enjoyed because it feels like an awareness by the creators to be like, oh, so that's our best movie, so we're gonna base as much as we can off of that movie. Speaking of Jason Momoa, he was probably the best part of this movie. Every single scene that he was in, he just stole it. He stole it from everyone else, no matter whether he was like with Vin Diesel or, just a bunch of nobodies or somebody else that's in the cast. Like he stole the show from literally everybody. He was the absolute highlight. Aside from maybe John Cena, I actually really liked John Cena in this movie, despite the fact that I didn't really like him in the last one. But he kind of redeemed himself for me in this one. He leaned into his sort of funny, goofy acting, which he does in Peacemaker, and I think that works here. But back to Jason Momoa, he just plays this character who's completely insane and deranged and not really like a character we've seen Jason Momoa play before. And he just completely leans into that, and like I said, he steals the scene. It's almost like what I was saying with Nicolas Cage in Renfield. I don't think he is as good as Nicolas Cage in Renfield. Like, I genuinely think that performance in Renfield is one of the best supporting actor performances of the entire year so far. Momoa does not do that. His performance is not that level and not that level of commitment. It just kind of felt like he was stepping onto the set and he was having a lot of fun portraying a character that's very different from anybody else he's played before. And also, at one point, it looked like that they were finally going to do another just classic Fast and Furious street race, and I was so excited. But then suddenly the setup built and you realized, oh, this isn't going to be an actual street race. This is going to progress into more explosions. And this movie has a lot of explosions. So many explosions where when I did like my initial little like letterbox review for this, I was literally just like, I think I'm desensitized to explosions now. Like, I feel like every 3 seconds in this film, you just get one. And it's like, it just kind of sucks. You're just getting explosions everywhere where they suddenly don't have an impact anymore, and they try to make a big deal out of one of them at the very end, and I was just like, oh, well, they're gonna be completely fine because, like, they've survived all these other explosions, so what makes this explosion any different? And I just think it's so interesting how a movie like this is able to desensitize you towards explosions, but then you also have Christopher Nolan right now making a movie based around an explosion, the explosion of a nuclear bomb. It feels like that there are just no stakes in the film. You never feel like any of these characters are really at danger. You see these characters do crazy things, and it might feel like they die, but at the end of the day, they bring everybody back to life in this franchise, so who cares? Nobody's gonna die. Everyone's gonna make it because they want this last movie to literally have the most stacked cast a movie has ever had, like, in Hollywood history. Like, obviously that is what they're going for, and great. That's what they're going for, and they will be able to achieve it. But all it's gonna produce is a mediocre at best film. Also, just going back to the street race, or at least what I was hoping would actually be a street race, it almost felt like that the filmmakers were pretty much looking at this and saying, oh, we did a bunch of street races in the earlier Fast movies. They're not interested in that anymore. But really, the most interesting part of this film was the build-up to the street race until the explosions happened. You know, and there was this one really cool part which I wish the movie leaned more into, which was where you had Dom on one side and Dante on the other side. Dante is Jason Momoa's character. And, you know, Dom had a bunch of guys, like, with guns pointing at Dante, being like, oh, these are, like, my guys. This is, like, family, yada, yada, yada. While Dante had his guys with guns pointed at Dom, because Dante just, like, gives them money and stuff. You know, if you just kind of have that idea of sort of family versus money in a sense, I think that could be a kind of cool idea to play with in this franchise, you know, and they could have had that power struggle between Dante's just like this ultra rich, insane guy versus the Fast family in Rio, and that could have been a really cool movie. It would have been smaller scale, but I think it would have made for a better watch and just more entertaining. But obviously this is new Fast and Furious where there needs to be government agencies and there needs to be more explosions and there needs to be all these cool MacGuffins and technologies and this and that and this and that. And like, I get it, you're trying to just go bigger, but it's not working. You know, and honestly in this film they didn't even go bigger, which I did kind of appreciate. Like they went to space in F9. They do not go to space in this movie. They do not do anything crazier than go to space. They don't even do anything crazier than fighting a submarine. You know, you see like Dom do a couple of these really crazy things at the end, and at the start, you know, there's a bomb running through a city, like a massive bomb, and they have to like stop it. You know, but these things just feel like Fast and Furious problems. I feel like I've seen things like these in Fast and Furious movies before, so I don't have as much of a problem with them as I do with like taking down a submarine with cars or going to space with a car. You know, these felt a lot more grounded in the Fast and Furious logic, and I didn't feel like it was going past that. One thing I did miss from F9 though was that some of the characters seemed to be a bit aware of the fact that they were just completely safe and covered in plot armor pretty much. You know, you would have Roman making all these jokes about how he was invincible and convincing guys that they were invincible because they never got a scratch after fights and they did all these missions and they never got hurt. And that's the truth, because they have plot armor, and the Fast movies don't want to kill off their characters, or at least really kill off their characters. And I kind of wish that joke sticked around. I like meta humor like that sort of breaks through the fourth wall a little bit. And just seeing that in a film is so fun, at least in my opinion. Maybe people disagree and thought that was really cheesy and stupid and that's why they took it out. But personally, I was a big fan, and to not have a single joke mentioning that whatsoever was a little disappointing to me. Pete Davidson shows up with a little cameo role in this movie. Call it a spoiler if you want, but honestly, I don't even consider it a spoiler. I feel like I see Pete Davidson in literally everything now, cameoing in some sort of capacity, which just kind of makes me sad. You know, like, what's the point? It's Pete Davidson. Like, who cares? Bring in an actual actor who's never really been in anything before, who can have the small role that can maybe jumpstart like an indie career or something. I don't need to see Pete Davidson literally cameoing in everything. Like, for what? Just to add another name to your resume of A-listers? Like, literally, what is the point? Yes, it was way better than the cameo that Cardi B made in F9. Oh my god, Cardi B's cameo in F9 was actually the worst thing I've seen in my entire life. But this still sucked. And when I saw it, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, of course there has to be Pete Davidson here. Next is just the licensed music. They use so much licensed music here, and like, for what? You know, the only movie where I can really think of licensed music making sense is the Guardians movies. Aside from that, I would get one or two songs, but like 10 or more than 10, which this movie does, is just absolutely absurd. You know, it's not like these songs have any sort of meaning to the characters. They're just songs being thrown in there to force the audience to have some sort of feeling. The last little point is just the action. In all these movies, really, the action is edited in such a choppy way where there's so many cuts happening at once, and it's like this action scene starts and then cut, action scene ends, and you can barely tell what happens, and you get this action whiplash. So at the end of the day, I am giving Fast X a 2.5-star rating. But what about you guys? Do you plan on watching Fast X? Have you already seen it? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe and really do whatever you gotta do because your support really means so much. This is a pretty small channel, so really every like, every subscription, every comment makes such a big difference. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and if you would like to watch another video, feel free to check out this review of Guardians in the Galaxy Volume 3. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.